Hello, and welcome to Just Therapist Things, where we talk all things therapy. My name is Jordan, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist from California. I am a private practice owner of Vital Mind Therapy, where I see clients virtually and in person. I also lead support groups for a nonprofit cancer support organization. Thanks for listening. Hello, all. Thank you for being here today. This is the 6th episode in my series of Diagnosing, where I, a licensed marriage and family therapist, analyze and, if necessary, diagnose fictional characters from TV and movies. Disclaimer: in this episode, I discuss sensitive topics such as suicide, abuse, harassment, and substance abuse. If you have been wondering why everyone and their mother recently has been saying, "Yes, chef," this is why. The Bear is the new it show right now. And I feel like everyone is talking about it because one, Jeremy Allen White is gorgeous, and also because the show itself is so captivating, intense, and well made. As I am making this episode, there are 3 seasons out of The Bear currently. Premise of the show takes place in a busy sandwich shop in Chicago, where the establishment itself, as well as the characters, have a lot of history, trauma, and complications, to say the least. The show has run for 3 seasons with 28 episodes, and there is talk that it is being renewed for another season. So, not gonna lie, it took me a second to get into season 1. I was absolutely hooked on season 2 and finished it in like 3 days. Season 3 has also taken me a minute to get into as well, but I am watching and it's still fabulous. So, let's get into it. The main character of this series is head chef Carmy, who is played by the actor Jeremy Allen White, and the show kind of centers around him and his family. Carmy is the youngest of 3 kids and is a native of Chicago. Carmy and his siblings had a tough childhood with their mother's substance use and mental health issues and their father's absence. Carmy's father and extended family built and ran a sandwich shop called The Beef. Carmy and his siblings grew up in an emotionally abusive household, but all 3 of them maintained a very strong bond. Carmy especially looked up to his brother Mikey, as they shared their love of cooking together. Mikey started working and running The Beef, and Mikey also developed mental health and substance use challenges of his own, which put a strain on Mikey and Carmy's relationship. Something happened between them in adulthood, and I'm not exactly sure of the details, but basically it seems like Carmy wanted to work at the family restaurant, The Beef, and Mikey told him no. And so Carmy basically said, "F you, I'm going to be the best chef in the world." And he started this quest. So he traveled to Europe and in the US. He worked at Michelin star restaurants and he won Best Up and Coming Chef Award at a very young age. While he's becoming this huge success, Mikey continues to run The Beef and struggles with mental health issues. Carmy also, during this time, suffers horrible emotional abuse from the head chefs at these Michelin star restaurants, and he's degraded, his self-esteem is crushed, and he's just really beaten down. So while Carmy is on this journey to become the best chef, he loses touch with his family, and Mikey's mental health issues continue, and he sadly, tragically ends up dying by suicide. In a surprising turn of events following his death, Mikey actually ends up leaving The Beef to Carmy in his will. Carmy has a lot of unresolved history with his brother, and he's enduring this unimaginable grief right now, especially with the complications in their relationship. And he decides to upend his new life as this successful chef, returns back to Chicago and The Beef. And it seems like it's definitely in honor of his brother, but it's also just because he feels like this is his obligation to his family and duty to his family. While running the beef, Carmy faces many, many challenges. The restaurant is insanely chaotic. It's a huge difference from the quiet structure, well, not quiet necessarily, but just more structured, not, intense yelling everywhere kind of restaurant that he's used to. But the beef is so chaotic. There's such big personalities working there. Appliances are falling apart. There's no structure with the employees and kind of the order of things. And there's also illegal business stuff happening that Mikey was the leader of, and then Carmy has to deal with. Carmy has a tough time getting this place up and running again. And he has experiences with intense anger and also flashbacks of moments with his brother, as well as flashbacks of the emotional abuse from the Michelin chefs. And this is most likely because he is in this environment, which brings up a lot of emotions for him. He's not removed from his family and the dysfunction as he was when he was working at the other restaurants. He is really right back in it at his family's restaurant and with people who knew his family and his brother intimately. So this is season 1, and it ends with Carmy finding a ton of money that Mikey hid in tomato cans from his illegal business stuff. And Carmy uses this money to revamp the beef into the bear, which further honors his brother and the rest of his family, as their last name is Barazzato. So the bear, Barazzato. And there's some symbolism there as well that comes out during the show. And season 2 is about them just making the bear a success. And you really see a transformation in the characters. You learn more about each of their background stories. You learn more about Mikey, and you just see the bear become a success. It's really beautiful. And as I said, I was absolutely hooked on season 2. During season 2, Carmy also finds love in Claire, and so that is a great development for him, but it also brings up a lot of challenges for him in relation to his diagnosis, which I will get into in a moment. And season 3 is a continuation of all of the good of season 2. There's also flashbacks, flash forwards. You just learn more and more about the characters, which is great. And it's really about continuing to make the bear a success. And it's also in season 3, you finally see Carmy and others finally process the trauma of Mikey's death. So the first diagnosis rule out that I considered for Carmy is persistent depressive disorder, or PDD. PDD is a continuous long-term form of depression that is not as severe as a whole as major depressive disorder, but the current depressive states that the person can be in while experiencing this can be severe. To qualify for a PDD diagnosis, the depressed mood must last for the majority of days for at least 2 years, and also must have 2 criteria from the following list that I will go through. And also must hold criteria from 2 of the following. So first is a feeling of sadness, emptiness, or feeling down, loss of interest in daily activities, tiredness, lack of energy, low self-esteem, trouble focusing clearly, problems getting things done, avoidance of social activities, feelings of guilt, poor appetite, sleep problems, and hopelessness. So for a lot of these, kind of just assume them. We don't really know because we don't know what's in Carmy's head, of course. I mean, this diagnosis and this analysis is just from what I see on the screen. So tiredness, poor appetite, sleep problems are unknown. We can kind of assume this of Carmy, but not exactly sure. Loss of interest in daily activities, problems getting things done on time, and trouble focusing clearly. Carmy doesn't really experience these. I mean, he is actually very hyper-focused. He has a problem not getting things done. He has a problem taking a break. So getting things done is not an issue for him. And loss of interest in daily activities, I mean, he continues being a chef. So I don't think that really fits. And for avoidance of social activities and low self-esteem, yes, this is kind of shown in how he really doesn't have a social life until he meets Claire. And it seems like he doesn't really go to parties, he doesn't really have friends, but he's super young still. Like I think he's low 20s or maybe mid 20s. And low self esteem, that's also hard to kind of gauge from what we see because we really just see him being this incredible chef. And also, we see the trauma that he has. So, this is kind of assumed as a possibility. And also, the feelings of guilt and worries over the past, that is most likely a yes, just based on the flashbacks that he has, the thoughts of Mikey and his family. We can assume that there's guilt and worry. People with PDD may be described as having a gloomy personality, having a short temper, and being easily irritable. This actually kind of perfectly describes Carmy. When we first meet him, we rarely see him smile. He's really just go, go, go in the kitchen. So, kind of a gloomy personality, definitely a short temper. He is one of the people in the kitchen that are yelling a ton and kind of screaming at everyone, being really agitated and frustrated by things going on. He just always looks stressed or angry. And with his intense anger outbursts, you see the famous Jeremy Allen White forehead vein pop. Yep, it is there. Just as it was in Shameless, it is there in The Bear as well. So overall, Carmy kind of meets this criteria, but not really. And it's hard to say how long these symptoms have been going on. And this criteria is he must have these symptoms for most days for 2 years. And so that is kind of hard to tell. So I think that there's a better diagnosis. Something else that I ruled out is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And this is different than OCD because OCD is a clear obsession and compulsion and repetitive behaviors and things like that. So that's not what I'm diagnosing him with or what I considered for his diagnosis. But obsessive compulsive personality disorder, on the other hand, is a diagnosis for an individual who has a preoccupation with perfectionism, control, and orderliness. So that's why I considered this for Carmy. OCPD is actually one of the most prevalent personality disorders, and it's pretty much just an excessive need to be perfect, which we see with Carmy because he is a chef and he wants everything to be totally perfect. So he shows this and a need for order, but it's also difficult because, I mean, this is what makes him a great chef, in that he has an extremely amazing eye for detail. If any tiny thing is not perfect, the plate is scrapped and remade. And this is also what makes The Bear so successful, in that Carmy knows how to run a kitchen, keep structure and order. So definitely a need to be perfect, a need for orderliness and control. Maybe. I'll talk about that in a second. So Carmy is also very dedicated to work, and he rarely engages in social relationships or leisure activities for himself, which are actually all other signs of someone with OCD. However, I don't think that Carmy neglects himself or social interactions because of his fixation with work, which would fit into this diagnosis. I think it's for other reasons, which I will get into in what I think his diagnosis actually is. So, as I said, another indicator of OCPD is when individuals plan ahead and they don't consider the changes. So, they're very inflexible and they need to be in control. So, they're my way or the highway type of people. Carmy is definitely the leader of the pack, even though he does have a partner, Sydney, and he likes things to be a certain way. But I would not say that he has a super strong need for control or inflexibility, as people who have this diagnosis often do. He is very structured and motivated and passionate and wants things to be a certain way, but we also see him be open-minded to others and make changes if needed, and he can take direction or suggestions. And we really see him develop this when he brings on Sydney as his partner in the restaurant and his co-chef, I think it's called. I don't think she's a sous chef. I think it's there's like equals, they're partners. But he shows to be really open-minded with her and to take direction and suggestions from her. So that's why I don't really think that this fits also. People with OCPD also often have restricted affect, so they're not expressive, they're very formal, and they only really speak or act if they do it perfectly. So this is definitely not Carmy. For all these reasons, this diagnosis is out. So, my diagnosis for Carmy is complex post traumatic stress disorder, or CPTSD, with perfectionist tendencies and avoidant attachment. So, this is kind of a mouthful, but it's not so intimidating when you break it down. So, let's start with CPTSD. This diagnosis shares many symptoms with normal PTSD, but it stems from repeated traumatic experiences rather than a single event. Both have similar symptoms in terms of flashbacks, avoidance, and hypervigilance, but CPTSD has more symptoms and it affects the person a little bit more, usually. So, key symptoms of CPTSD include panic attacks, depression, mood swings, interpersonal difficulties such as relationship conflicts, trust issues, difficulty asking for help, and dissociation. Someone with CPTSD might get headaches and experience excessive sweating, which is interesting because Carmy actually does show a lot of sweating in the series, but it's unclear if that's just because the kitchen was super hot while he's working or if it's a symptom of this. So, as talked about, Carmy has had multiple traumas in his life, and it seems they have been stemming since childhood. So, Carmy's dad has been absent and out of the picture for seems like a long, long time, and his mom struggles with substance use and anger issues, which persist even into Carmy's adulthood. This causes great family dysfunction and ongoing challenges. And another trauma is that when Carmy was being trained as a chef there is one really intense scene where it is Christmas and all the kids are adults. And it seems to happen when he's a chef in New York or something like that, or maybe in Europe. And he comes back for the holidays and things just go crazy. And the whole episode is pretty much just at this dinner table where his mom is having a lot of issues and having a big episode. Mikey is having a mental health episode, and there's just so much tension in his family. And that is in season 2. So definitely still trauma with family happening in adulthood. Another trauma is that when Carmy was being trained as a chef at the high-end restaurants, he was bullied and harassed by one chef there for years. This seems to really heavily affect Carmy, and he experiences flashbacks of his time at that restaurant, and it clearly affects his self-worth as a chef. And then, of course, the big trauma is that his brother died by suicide. Carmy experiences flashbacks of moments with his brother, mood swings, and anxiety and depressive symptoms because of this trauma. Carmy definitely has issues trusting others and feels like he can only rely on himself. He also self-sabotages relationships or doesn't even engage in them. When he dates Claire after not being in a relationship for years, he finds it hard to trust her and fully let himself go. So it's clear that Carmy has been through a lot and he holds a lot of unprocessed trauma and grief. Throughout the series, we see glimpses of Carmy's CPTSD, but it becomes very apparent when, at the end of season 2, on the night of the Bears' grand opening, he accidentally locks himself in a meat freezer. And while he is in this freezer, it's unknown how long, but it seems to be a few hours at least, he experiences great anxiety and flashbacks of his traumas, and we're kind of left with oh damn, like Carmy has a lot to deal with, like hope he gets help type of feeling. So this brings me to Carmy's avoidant attachment style. This attachment style is characterized by someone who avoids emotional expression, physical and emotional intimacy, is highly dependent, and high achieving. So yes, yes, double yes to Carmy. People with avoidant attachment style can often be described as being a lone wolf and also very self-sufficient. So this definitely describes Carmy. This attachment style usually develops from emotionally distant parents who do not model or who discourage emotional expression and vulnerability. We see this again very clearly in his relationship with Claire, where he pushes her away in fear of hurting her and because he is unable to express how he feels. And then lastly, perfectionist tendencies. I mean, who doesn't have a little bit of this really in different areas of life? But especially being a high achieving chef, you kind of have to have some sort of perfectionist qualities. And this is, of course, shown in Carmy's need for every dish to be perfect, everything for to be just right in the restaurant, and his desire for orderliness and structure. So, treatment. Let's start first with the treatment for avoidant attachment. So, avoidant attachment treatment, there's a structure to it, there can be a structure to it, but it really just is from life experiences. So, it's processing how you developed the attachment styles, figuring out why you are the way you are, but also just the experiences of having healthy, secure attachments in day to day life. And that's really when you heal from this avoidant attachment. So in season 3, and I'm not too far into it, but it does seem like Carmy is developing those healthier, secure attachments with people, especially Claire and also other of the chefs and other family members. So he's getting that. So he's getting that exposure and healing from his avoidant attachment style. For perfectionism, you could treat this with exposure therapy and CBT, but Carmy might not even need treatment for it unless it starts to cause him distress. It seems like right now it's just working to his advantage. And treatment for CPTSD is definitely the most important and necessary for Carmy. He would benefit from trauma-focused CBT, which includes teaching coping skills, cognitive restructuring, and gradual exposures to the trauma. And this should only be done with a professional. EMDR can also be helpful for Carmy to process specific traumas, and medications such as SSRIs are sometimes prescribed with CPTSD as well. So that is Carmy from The Bear, and I hope that as season 3 goes along and I finish it, and hopefully if season 4 happens, that Carmy continues to process his traumas and just grow and develop as a person, and that The Bear is a huge success. But it really is an incredible, incredible series, and I highly recommend it.
If anyone listening is struggling with their mental health, please call 988 or 911 to get help, reach out to loved ones, and know that you are not alone. Thank you for listening to Just Therapist Things, and I will talk to you soon.